Okay, let's bring in Nour Odeh now, who's a political analyst and former spokesperson for the Palestinian Authority. She's in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Welcome to you, Nour. Let's go straight to the most important matter. How do you assess these ceasefire talks? Ramadan is just a week away. Do you think there's a chance we'll actually see an agreement?
I think the talks in Cairo are very difficult and very precarious, and there are opposing interests that are pulling away these efforts in very different directions. On the one hand, you have Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, who wants first and foremost to stay in power, to appease the extreme coalition who oppose any ceasefire deal and who is facing some sort of mutiny within the ranks of his war cabinet. On the other, you have Hamas, who needs to also deliver to the public in Gaza, namely when it comes to humanitarian aid, when it comes to the need for Palestinians to return to the north and to allay their fears that Israel will de facto annex northern Gaza and will create these deep so-called buffer zones in the enclave, basically trapping the population in an even smaller area of the tiny Gaza Strip. So there are a lot of things here. We're going to hear a lot of grandstanding, a lot of rhetoric from both sides until a deal is reached. And I think there is great international interest in that. We heard from the Biden administration putting its rhetorical weight, at the very least, behind such a deal. And we know that Egypt and Qatar have been working round the clock to make sure that the 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza get a chance on life, on receiving the assistance that they need so direly, and to have at least those weeks of a cessation of the aggression in order to give a chance to a political dialogue that could end the war.
It's almost like Kamala Harris woke up at the weekend and heard for the first time that there's a war in Gaza, that people are dying and starving. And 5 months in, not only Joe Biden 5 months in suddenly deciding perhaps, taking food and dropping it into Gaza might help, but now she's saying perhaps we need a ceasefire. Do public statements like hers mean that America is actually finally serious about creating a ceasefire? Because there's a lot of experts who say if America really wanted this war to stop, they have the leverage to make it happen with Israel.
Yeah, I agree with the experts. I think these, like I said, these statements from the Biden administration are rhetorical. They really are geared towards the disgruntled base of the Democratic Party, which has been giving this administration a beating at the polls, a beating at the primaries of the Democratic Party. And as November approaches, this White House needs to at least do something that could give them a better chance at winning the elections. Of course, we also know that Joe Biden is ideologically entrenched in his views, in his support of Israel, no matter what it does, in his really lack of empathy towards the Palestinian people and their suffering. So it's very difficult to take what is being said seriously, knowing that the United States continues to provide Israel with the weapons and political protection that ensures that this war continues, that ensures that this engineered starvation of 2.3 million people continues. 80% of the world's hungriest people are in Gaza now. This didn't happen because of a natural disaster. It happened because Israel made it happen, and the U.S. allowed Israel to do that and provided and continues to provide the protection for Israel to continue that starvation. So very difficult to match those two things together and still take whatever is being said seriously.
No, just very quickly, if I may, what do you think of the way that Muslim majority nations have been viewing this conflict? It feels like they've been, condemning it without taking tangible action. The Arab League seems to have been reluctant to do too much. If this war goes into Ramadan, will that attitude change?
Well, I think you've raised a very important point. We've heard a lot from Muslim nations, but we haven't really seen a lot of action. There have been efforts, diplomatic efforts, but I think that countries, Arab countries and majority Muslim countries, can do a lot more. They can take steps that hurt, that bite economically and politically, not just Israel, but those who enable Israel to continue this war. We've seen litigation against countries accused of complicity because they continue to sell Israel weapons. There are a lot of economic relations between Arab and majority Muslim countries with governments like that in Germany, in the Netherlands, in the United States, and in others that can make a difference. And so far, we have not seen that happen, which of course is disappointing to ordinary Palestinians, but it also, I think, goes a long way to show the kind of surrender to the weaker status that these countries have confined themselves to. I think Ramadan will add pressure on those governments, and that is perhaps why we're seeing a lot of effort, frenzied efforts, really, diplomatic efforts to reach a ceasefire, because all those governments understand that in Ramadan, when people, by default think of those less fortunate, Gaza will be first and foremost on everybody's mind, and that could result in an increase in tensions all around the region.
Nour, thanks so much for your time and your contribution. Nour Odeh is a former spokesperson for the Palestinian National Authority.